evening, teachers and fellow classmates. Today, our topic is about women in the arts. We will be briefly discussing about Alma Mahler and Colette, who are writers, Fanny Mendelssohn, who was a composer, Maria Taglioni, who was a ballerina, and finally, Maria Malibran and Pauline Viardot, who were classical singers. Focusing more on Clara Wieck, who is the composer, and George Sand, who is a writer.
There were many revolutions, both small and big, that took place during the Romantic era that influenced and shaped the society and music. One of the important revolutions that took place was the demand for female rights and gender equality from the women in that era.
During the classical period, prior to the Romantic period, women were not recognized for their music. The men were seen as the more superior people at their art forms like dance, music, literary arts, and visual arts. Only in the 1900s did women start getting more recognition for their works. As women's rights slowly developed, people started passively fighting for their rights and influenced other women to take up art and pursue it as a profession.
Female composers were rare, and not many dared to take it up, and thus there were fewer women who took music. In the Romantic era, however, women were more daring to put forth their thoughts, and thus fought for their rights and demanded equality from the men. Many female writers during this time hinted support for women's rights into their novels. For example, Mary Wollstonecraft was a writer and a women's rights advocate.
Firstly, Alma Mahler. She was a Viennese-born composer, author, editor, and socialite. She was known for having a very strong and daring personality. Her marriages to Gustav Mahler, Walter Gropius, and Franz Wievel, and her many relationships including those with Gustav Klimt. Her composition teacher Alexander Zemlinsky and painter Oskar Kokoschka had made her one of the 20th century's most famous muses and femme fatales.
Next, Clara Wieck. She was a German musician and composer, a child prodigy, and a sole breadwinner. She started performing under the guidance of her father. She was also a very popular pianist during her time and was a known concert pianist internationally. Later on in her life, she got married to Robert Schumann, who was a very popular and talented composer. Clara Wieck wanted to combine their lives artistically and was dedicated to the music industry. She made a living out of music. However, being a woman, family burden narrowed her artistic opportunities. In Clara's lifetime, she wrote very few romantic pieces, one of which being Preludium 1. This piece is in G minor and has a time signature of 3/4. It goes against the rules of romantic music as it has a minor sudden dynamic change, however has many crescendos and decrescendos.
Next, Sidonie Gabrielle Colette, who was a French author and was popular during the Romantic era and won a Nobel Prize in Literature. She initiated a stage career in music halls across France, sometimes playing Claudine in sketches from her own novels, earning barely enough to survive and often hungry and unwell. This period of her life is called in La Vagabonde, which deals in women's independence in a male society, a theme to which she would regularly return in future works. During these years, she embarked on a series of relationships with other women. The Vagabond is a 1910 novel by the French writer Colette. It tells the story of a woman who after divorce became a dancer in music halls. It was inspired by Colette's own experiences.
Pauline Viardot used to be a 19th century mezzo-soprano, pedagogue, and composer of the Spanish descent. Born as Michelle Ferdinand Pauline Garcia, her title appears in a variety of forms. As a child, Viardot studied piano with Franz Liszt, composition with Anton Reicha, and voice with her mother. She was the sister of Maria Malibran, a celebrated soprano, one of the great voice teacher Emmanuel Garcia too. Viardot made her concert debut at the age of 15 in Brussels, and her operatic debut 2 years later as Desdemona in Gocchino's Rossini's Ottella in London. She was noted for her wide vocal range and could sing both soprano and contralto roles.
Her greatest successes were highly dramatic roles, such as Fides in Giacomo Meyerbeer's The Prophetic, which was written for her, and Rachel in Fromental Halavi La Juve. The climax of her career came in 1859, when she performed the title role in Hector Louis Berlioz's recreation of Christophe Gluck's Orfeo de Eurydice at the Theatre Lyrique in Paris. Next, Maria Taglioni. Maria Taglioni was born into a Greek ballet family. Her father, Filippo Taglioni, was a renowned Italian dancer, choreographer, and ballet master, and his brother, Salvatore Taglioni, was the principal dancer and ballet master at Naples for half-century.
Next, George Sands. George Sands was her pseudonym. Her real name was Emmentine Lucille Aurore Dupin. She was known to be a very bold and brilliant woman who did anything she wished to do. She was influenced by her tutor, who encouraged her to wear men's clothing while horseback riding, and she galloped through the countryside in trousers and a loose shirt, free, wild, and in love with nature. She was taught to be more free and be more of herself than restricting herself. Because of her early life, she sided with the poor and the working class as well as women's rights. One of her most famous novels are Indiana, written during 1832. The novel deals with many typical 19th century novelistic themes. These include adultery, social constraint, and unfulfilled longing for romantic love. The novel is an exploration of 19th century female desire, complicated by class constraints and by social codes about indefinity.
Even today, there are still some countries around the world which oppress women and treat men as the superior gender. Some of these countries include Saudi Arabia. Women in Saudi Arabia are treated as lifelong dependents under the guardianship of a male relative, deprived of even the right to drive a car or mix with men publicly. They are confined to strictly segregated lives on pain of severe punishment.
All in all, the Romantic era was a time of complete social and political upheaval. Whilst today the divide that exists between men and women are slowly closing, during the late 18th century and early 19th century, the position of women was subordinate to that of men.
Thank you for your attention.